Testimony in the People versus Larry Millete today from the first member of Maya's family to go to her house after she went missing. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
I'm Marcella Lee. Maya's brother, J.R. Tabalanza, was worried about his sister. CBS 8's David Gottfredson was in court as J.R. recounted what happened when he showed up at the family's home in Chula Vista.
I walked to the door of their house. I rang the doorbell.
Maya Millete had been missing 24 hours on the evening of January 8th, 2021. Her brother, J.R. Tabalanza, had been unable to reach Maya or her husband, Larry, for 12 hours. The couple's 10-year-old daughter answered the door.
And then I asked her, "Where's your mom?" And then she said, she's been locked in her room for 11 hours now, and she hasn't fed us.
Maya's husband, Larry Millete, was inside the home with the 3 kids.
Did you tell your brother-in-law that you had been trying to reach him?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said, "My phone's been dead all day."
J.R. went upstairs to look for Maya in her bedroom.
I knocked a few times and I called out her name, but there was no response.
Did you ask your brother-in-law if there was a way to get in?
No.
Any reason why you didn't ask?
I just felt like it wasn't my place.
Why not?
I didn't want to be intrusive. I wanted to be respectful.
Larry claimed he had just gotten home from work, according to the brother-in-law, but later in the conversation his story changed and Larry claimed he had been with his son all day in the family's SUV.
There was a point where he mentioned that Lazarus has been eating French fries all day because he was with him.
J.R. also testified Larry admitted he had gotten into a big argument with Maya the night before.
Because Larry threatened to call the wife of the guy.
What guy?
Supposedly the guy that she was having an affair with.
Prosecutors allege Larry murdered his wife because she was planning to divorce him. In a text message shown in court, Maya wrote to her brother, quote, "I am so tired of his mental and emotional abuse." The preliminary hearing will continue Tuesday because of the long holiday weekend. Prosecutors are expected to call more relatives of Maya to testify about why she would not voluntarily abandon her family.
David, we know also that Maya's sister, Maricris Drouaillet, was cross-examined this morning. What stood out to you from that?
There were hours of brutal cross-examination of Maricris. You could tell Maya's sister was getting frustrated on the stand, and the judge was getting frustrated too. He frequently had to make his own objections to the line of questioning by Larry's attorney.
Now, an attorney who's getting a lot of attention, much of it because of her background in family law, not as a criminal defense attorney. David Gottfredson reporting live for us. Thanks, David.
A lot of people have been watching this case closely for the last 2 years. Joining us now to help break down the testimony in this preliminary hearing is legal analyst Gretchen von Helms. Gretchen, welcome.
Thank you.
Today on day 3 of testimony, we heard from Maya's younger brother, J.R. Tabalanza. Let's get right to this piece of evidence, a text message that J.R. says he received from Maya where she complained that her husband wrote in these texts that he never lets me be by myself. He checks my emails, messages, messenger posts, talks about him tightening the reins even more. How strong is this text exchange for the prosecution as evidence as they try to show that Larry was controlling and jealous?
Well, it's very strong evidence for what they're trying to prove, which is that he murdered her. Because if he's that tight and if he's that controlling and that jealous, he could have done away with her because she was having an affair. That's what the prosecution's theory is.
Larry's attorney, Bonita Martinez, really focused on alleged affairs, as you mentioned, that Maya had as she cross-examined Maya's siblings. Now, how could this be helping her defense case?
Well, her defense is that her siblings and she, Maya, are not that close. Because if they didn't know about her affairs, then they weren't that close with their sister. So she's going to say, well, they're not that close, and so that's why she's in the Philippines not calling them. That's her theory of defense.
So Gretchen, you've been a criminal defense attorney for almost 3 decades. In your observation of the line of questioning from Larry's attorney, and as David Godfreyson just mentioned, the objections that the judge has had to step in and make himself, what is your analysis of how this is playing out?
Well, I think she's doing an adequate job getting her theory of defense out, but she's a little bit scattered in her approach. She's not streamlined, and she doesn't know the rules of evidence for a criminal court. It's really clear that she's very awkward with that, but I think she's doing, from the points I've seen, an adequate job of getting her theory out about the fact that she believes, or their defense is that Maya's in the Philippines and just not calling her family members because she's not that close with them.
Well, that brings me to this question. Legal observers question the effectiveness of Ms. Martinez, who, as we've been talking about, is a divorce and family law attorney and not a criminal defense attorney. There has been some question as to whether or not the judge could actually remove her from the case, or maybe perhaps appoint a public defender to Larry Millete to help in this case, because if this case is bound over for trial, and if there is a conviction, there could be grounds for appeal based on ineffective assistance of legal counsel if some support doesn't happen as we get to an actual trial where there's jurors and so forth. What's your take on that?
Well, it's really up to the defendant who he wants as his lawyer. So the judge may say, your lawyer's doing X, Y, Z, and try to explain to the defendant that he is, at risk, that he's underrepresented. And if the defendant still chooses her because he shares a language in common with her, and maybe he relates to her, maybe that's why he chose her. And so it's up to him who he wants as his defense lawyer.
All right,
so
Gretchen.
the judge probably would not force him to accept somebody else.
All right, Gretchen Von Helms, thank you so much for your insight all week. We'll see you again on Tuesday.